back to my channel. I'm Ros Clark, this is Ros Clark Craft, and you are all very welcome to be here. If you haven't already, please do go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You might like to click the notification bell to make sure you get told every time I upload a new video. And if you enjoy what you're watching, please do like the content as well. If you don't like it, feel free to click and say you don't like it, give it a thumbs down, and that's fine as well. Good. Thank you so much, particularly to those people who have left comments after my last video. It's just really fun to hear what you think of all the things I'm doing and your suggestions, and particularly thank you to the people who keep pointing out all the mistakes that I am making in filming. I am trying to do better every time. Somebody asked a question, which actually quite a few people in person have asked me a question about as well. It's about the piece of wall art that normally sits behind me here. So I've taken it off the wall to show you, give you a bit of a better look at this. Oh, that's upside down, that way around. So this is a piece of art that I made. I made this just towards the end of 2020 in one of my art classes that I go to. We had been doing some work on abstraction. And so we'd all brought in photos of something and used that to abstract colours from the image. And you can see the sort of range of colours that I had. Let me hold that a bit nearer. We mixed the colours, and then what we did with the colours that we had mixed was we painted, these are, can you see that? They're not quite lolly sticks, they are coffee stirrers, so they're a bit thinner than lollipop sticks. And we painted according to how much we liked each colour, that number of lolly sticks. So the colours you liked, you painted a lot in those, and the colours you liked less, you painted fewer of those, and all of them had to be sort of different lengths, dipping as if you dipped them across the coffee stirrer. Once they were done and they were dry, you can see I didn't paint the back, we then played around. We had to make, I can't remember, 4 or 5 different three-dimensional arrangements of our coffees. Did they have to be three-dimensional? No. 3 or 4 different arrangements of our coffee stirrers. So you could do them like overlapping, or arranged with all the same colours together, or the different ends going in different directions. And it was quite fun, and I think it's always a good thing, and I really like when we do this in our art lessons, to be made to do something multiple different ways, because otherwise you tend to assume that your first idea is your best idea, and then you do it different ways and you're like, oh, actually. And this was about my 3rd or 4th idea. Anyway, I don't know if you can guess what the photo was that I had taken in. Not only the colours are reflected, but also this curve is a reflection of something from that image. And actually what it was a book I've got about the Queen Mary 2 cruise liner. I have 2 books about the Queen Mary 2 cruise liner, in fact, and that's because I went on it for a transatlantic cruise. I travelled from New York to Southampton as part of my 40th birthday holiday a number of years ago, and it happened to be the 10th anniversary cruise of the liner, so they gave us all a complimentary book with lots and lots of beautiful photos. And this was a photo of the ship sailing somewhere in the world at sunset and just reflecting beautiful, beautiful colours of the ship itself, and then reflected into the water beneath, and that sort of curve of the prow, I want to say. I'm not really a ship sort of person. And as soon as I arranged my colours in that order and with that sort of shape, I just knew that was the right way to display it. So then they are just glued on the back to bits of foam board cut. Because of the way mine narrowed, it didn't work to just have one strip down the back, because it would have stood out at either end. So it's slightly cut in weird shapes. And then I just hang it on the wall by sticking the nail into the foam board. I really love it, actually, and a number of people, I say a number of people have visited, like 3 people have been in my house in the last 12 months. But anyway, people have commented on this, and it is really unusual. I think it's really striking. I love the colours, I love how we did that. So if you want to have a go at that at home, you will just need a photo of inspiration, a pile of wooden coffee stirrers, some acrylic paint, a little bit of foam board and glue, and an afternoon to enjoy making a mess. So that's that. So while I'm talking about art, let me carry on talking about art. So last time we were working on the tiles, and I showed you the picture that I'd got with the sort of leaf shapes on the tiles. We then had a slight hiatus because a couple of people were away for half term. So in the intervening week, we just made these. These are not quite mandalas, but that sort of idea of geometric design. And we did these. We had stencils that we stenciled through with watercolour. Now, watercolour is quite runny, and stencils don't work brilliantly with runny liquid. The paint will just seep underneath, and on the back of these that you can't see, there are some very blobby ones. But you can do it if you make up the watercolour with as little liquid as possible, and then you use a sponge which you put in the paint and then you squeeze out, and then you sort of have scrap paper that you paint with the sponge onto until you can feel that it's really quite dry, and then dab through. So that's what we did to get the background colour. And then I'm going to hold these up. We worked on them with fine liners. This one I just worked in colours, different colours of fine liner. Hopefully you can see that. And then a white gel pen. And then this one I worked on just with a black fine liner and again the white gel pen. So we spent a couple of hours. We'd also done a sort of warm-up exercise, and then they were done. That was really fun. But we were back to normal this week, and we were working on tiles again. This is very much an in-progress thing to show you. I have been thinking about various ideas, and in the end I remembered this book that I got. It is a catalogue of an exhibition from the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge that a friend very kindly bought for me a few years ago, and it's about samplers. It's a proper book, so there are pictures, but there's also quite a lot of text. I was mostly inspired by the pictures, and I wanted something that I thought I could translate into the tile. I should have put a bookmark in this before starting to record, but I will find it in a moment. Lots of these samplers obviously are, well, you know, typical sampler design, so lots with alphabets, lots with sayings, lots with pictures, some of which are very domestic, lots of houses, trees and so on, but also lots that are very biblical. And I was interested in samplers with Adam and Eve on them, and I found in the end, no, still can't find it. Here we are. Now, if you can see, those are two different samplers, but it's super interesting just in terms of sampler development and design. They are very, very similar. Some of them you would say those are definitely worked from the same chart. The sort of flowers and the things in this section look very similar. These outside trees in this section look very similar. You can see it's got the same sort of shapes outlining the name and date and so on. But some things are clearly very different. This tree in the middle, for example, and indeed the figures, let me put that a bit closer, of Adam and Eve, quite different on the two samplers. This flower in the middle is quite different in scale here, and the borders, again, very different in scale. So they've both got lions and unicorns, but this is much bigger than this one over here. So anyway, that's, I think, why they're in the book, comparing how different people worked different things from the same pattern. But I liked this image of the tree with an Adam and an Eve. I haven't put well, I'll show you what I've done with mine in a minute, but that was what I used as my sort of source inspiration. Let me show you how far I have got. So these are still drying out, and I haven't got all of them done. This is as far as I got in this week. So this is my central tile, and as you can see, it's got the tree, it's got some flowers, it's got these little hillocks that are very typical of sort of sampler design or Jacobean crewelwork design. I've textured the bark, I've textured the leaves, and I don't know if you can just about see, I've marked in there where the sort of fruit of the tree will be. Let's not say it's an apple tree, but you know, something like that. So that's the central panel, and then either side of that I've got the panels with Adam and Eve. So there's Adam wearing some unspecified garment hiding his unmentionables. He's looking very smiley. And then here is Eve. Again, she's got hair sort of wrapped around her and an arm carefully placed. She's got long hair, and yeah. My art class colleagues were slightly rude about Adam and Eve. I think my teacher said he does have something of a dad bod, which, you know, I mean, he does, but also maybe he did. I don't know. Anyway, so those are going to be the central part of the panel. And then this is what the wording is going to say across the top. So we've got the first bit, marry, in, faith. And these are all going to have that same technique that I did on the leaves, where we'll put paint on and really work it into the texture and then wipe it off. And then I think probably it will also be varnished as well. It is going to say something at the bottom as well. So it's going to say marry in faith. And then at the bottom, which the tiles haven't done yet, it's going to say not in haste. So marry in faith, not in haste. So we will finish, carry on working on that next week. We won't finish it because I will still have tiles to make and they'll need to dry. So it'll be a couple of weeks. But maybe by the time we have the next video, that might be finished and I'll show you how that looks. So that's all the art that I've been working on. I have not bought fabric or yarn in the last couple of weeks. That's not quite true. I bought some fabric, but it hasn't arrived yet, so I don't think that counts. But I have bought a lot of art supplies in the last week. And that is for two reasons. Firstly, because I have been shopping. I mean, it's, you know, I've been going to Tesco all the way through. I've occasionally been to B&Q or Co-op or, you know, places for things that I actually need. But last week I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to go shopping because I can. So that was exciting. And I went to various places, but mostly of interest, I went to Dunelm and I went to Hobbycraft. I'm not going to show you everything I bought, mostly because it's very boring to look at. But I did buy quite a lot of sketchbooks and watercolour paints and acrylic inks and other various assorted art materials. And the main reason for this is that I am going on a painting holiday. I can't remember if I've mentioned that in any of the previous videos, but in July I'm going on a painting holiday that I booked like 18 months ago at least. More than that, I think. I certainly paid for it 18 months ago, and I think I'd booked it a few months prior to that. And then obviously it was postponed, and so it feels like I've been waiting for a long time for this, but it also feels slightly like a free holiday because I paid for it so long ago. And there is a list of materials to bring, and I just thought, you know, I've been through my stash and thought, no, I've got that and I've got that. But I've also thought, do you know what? I am just going to treat myself to the things that I haven't got on the list. So I did quite a lot of shopping at Hobbycraft for some of those things. I've also just had an order arrive from Jackson's Art. And I mean, if you're really interested, I'm happy to go through that pile of stuff, but it's not, I don't think, that exciting to look at. Not like fabric or yarn is exciting to look at. So I just didn't want you to think that I was pretending I had not bought anything, because I have bought quite a lot of things in the last couple of weeks, and they all really fit into that art section. So I think that's all I have to say about that. I thought what I would do, by the way, having talked to you about this piece here, rather than try and do a sort of whole video tour of all the things I have made in my house, which I don't know when I would do that and might take forever, what I'm going to try and do is remember to get one thing each video and just spend a few moments telling you about that, and hopefully that way we'll get through quite a lot of the things. There's this one you can see here, but then there's a whole load more around the house. So that's art. Let's go on to sewing. So I've made two things. Well, I've finished one and I've almost finished the other. Let's start with the one that I've finished. And let me turn this the right way out. You may recognise this fabric from the last video, and you may recognise the pattern that I used from the last video. So this was my William Morris viscose, just woven viscose lightweight fabric. I've made it into a mash-up between the Nina Lee spring dress, that's the sort of front bodice and neckline, and in fact most of the dress, and then I just took the sleeves from the Fiona set from Sew Girl, both of which I'd got from sewing magazines at some point. So what I did there, in fact I'm going to put up a video here, this is me enjoying wearing the dress. I really like how it turned out. I really like the front bodice. So those are two bodice pieces, and I did not really do a lot of pattern matching. I did try to make sure that, let me see if I can hold this up more evenly so you can see what's going on here. There we are. So I did try and line it up so that the horizontal pattern continued, and as you can see that's worked really well. But can you see the pattern matching down the centre seam? There is a seam there, and it looks perfect. It doesn't look quite perfect when you come a little bit lower. You can kind of see here that that's not perfect. But there's like a seam in the middle of this flower. That there is a seam in that flower. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I really didn't spend hours pattern matching. It's all by luck, really. But I was very pleased with how that turned out. I'm very pleased with how the neckline looks when I'm wearing it. I think it's super smart. Really easy to do. I thought the instructions were excellent, actually, for that V neckline, and then the bias binding, which comes into the ends. You could tie it together, I guess, if you wanted that sort of style. I'm not sure I ever will. But I sort of like having the ends there. They are a bit longer than in the pattern, and it's possible that might get annoying, in which case it's very easy to just chop a bit off and then tie another knot further down. So with the sleeves, what I did was I took the sleeve for the Nina Lee dress that was the main pattern that I was using, and I traced around the head of the sleeve, so then I knew the sleeve would fit into the sleeve hole. I then traced the shape of that head onto the sleeve pattern from the Fiona set, and then cut that out. So it's the Fiona sleeve, but with the sleeve head from the Nina Lee spring dress. I did end up chopping, I think, about 4 or 5 inches off the length of the sleeve, and to be honest it could go even shorter than that. That's just because I have short arms. I always have to chop off the edge of sleeves. So that worked really well. So the sleeve was the main modification I made. The only other modification I made, it didn't have pockets, and I'm like, why would you want a dress without pockets? So I've put pockets in there. I just used a pocket pattern piece from a different dress, stitched them into the side seams. Jobs are good in. So I'm really pleased with that. It's really nice and comfortable wear. You can see in the video I'm really enjoying wearing it. It's nice and light, it's not see-through, and I'm very glad that I have got more fabric on the way to make another one. So that's the dress. Now this is the other thing that I made, which is not completely finished. All the sewing is finished, but can we spot a theme here? Bright pink, neutral. I mean, that's just it. So I'm going to again put a video of me wearing this here. You can see it's more or less finished. It's very wearable, but the poppers. I have enormous amounts of sympathy for contestants on the Sewing Bee who wrestle with those poppers. and then Esme just comes along and rips it open and half the poppers come out. So if you look here, okay, those are not bad. Those are the front poppers. The back part of those poppers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 7 have come out. So I need to replace those. The problem is when you have put them in and then they come out, they are deformed. So you can't just reuse the same bit. So I've had to order another set. There are 10 in a set. I needed 9 for this jacket. Yeah. There are also, it's 9 because there's 7 down the front and then on the sleeve cuffs as well. So again, you can see the front is out and this one's got the back bit stuck into it where it pulled out there. I think the other cuff is still functional. Yeah, on both sides, so that can go in there. So this is the Friday Pattern Company Ilford jacket. I previously made one of these in a dark blue cotton drill. I had bought that in a Sewing Society kit from Guthrie and Garney. They're good kits. I mean, they're not cheap, but I quite like them, particularly for something like this where you do have quite a lot of fiddly bits. So in the kit there was the main fabric, there was some fabric for sort of binding and lining bits of it. I'll talk more about that in a minute. There were the poppers, there were bits of interfacing, there's matching thread, you get a printed version of the pattern, and you also get access to videos showing you, sort of talking you through some of the complicated steps in making the garment. So I thought it was worth it. It was about £70 for the first one. So I mean, you know, which is quite a lot of money, but it was lovely. It's lovely fabric. The lining is Liberty Tana lawn. Yeah, and I just thought, well, I've not made that sort of a jacket before. I think it would be useful to have that instruction. So it's good. So I like that. I finished that one and have been making it. And then I thought, do you know what? I'd like another one. I'd like a denim jacket. And last summer and autumn, I went through a real phase of making a lot of pinafore dresses. And I made one out of this pink denim, but it's quite a heavy denim. And it just, I wore it once, I think, as a pinafore, once or twice, and it was just really heavy and bulky, and it didn't really sit nicely on the body and was quite unflattering. And I had some left over, and obviously I had the pinafore itself, and I just began thinking, I wonder if that's enough to make a jacket, because that would be fun, bright pink denim jacket. So I unpicked, this was the pocket that had been on the front of the jacket. It's got a lining in a Cath Kidston fabric. This was an excellent charity shop find. I bought half a dozen, I think, of these Cath Kidston IKEA pillowcases, you know, old and used, but really nice and soft, therefore, for 50p each. And I've been using them mostly this year for making face masks, but some for this lining of this pocket. So I took the pocket off and saved that. I was able to cut the back of the jacket whole from one of the pinafore pieces. And then I did have to patch a little bit of the fabric to make the fronts. The fronts are wider because you've got the placket here. So there are seams here and then on the other side of the front of the jacket here. It sort of looks really puckered on the screen. In person, I don't think it's very noticeable, to be honest. It's a very bright sunny day and there's a lot of light bouncing off this jacket. So I was able to do that, and then from the fabric that I had not used on the pinafore, I had enough to cut out the sleeves. And then the cuffs, the collar and the placket. I had some scraps of this. This is not Tana lawn, but it is Liberty. It's Liberty quilting cotton that I used to line the collar and the cuffs, and I thought that worked really well. Sadly, I didn't have enough for the rest of the lining. So this is an African wax print fabric that I have not yet made up into anything. So I used that. I didn't have quite enough, well, I didn't have enough depth on the front and back pieces. So on the pattern, it calls for it to be just a grown on waistband. So you would cut the full length here, plus another 2 or 3 inches here that you then turn up to make the waistband. I didn't have enough for that. What I had was enough to come to here. So I then was able to piece together another separate bit and sew that on as a waistband all the way around, which I think looks fine. I don't think you would think that's a weird place to have a seam at all. And I lined the waistband with the African print fabric. So on the actual pattern you would have, this would be your plain denim, and then there'd be a bit of lining fabric, contrast fabric to bind it. I'm fine with this. I've not bound the seams. In my first one I did bind the seams, although then sadly I had to take them out. But I've just finished the seams with a zigzag. And I think that's it really. It is actually really quite a simple sew once you've got your head round it. The plackets, they're a little bit counterintuitive, so you have to follow the instructions pretty closely or watch a video. If you don't have the Sewing Society video, there is a video from Friday Pattern Company itself showing you how to do that, but I think they turned out quite nicely. The collar is not the most difficult collar in the world. It doesn't have a collar stand. Yep, that's fine. If you're doing a collar and a lining, you just want to be really careful as you think about which bit you're pressing under and which bit you're sewing. Yeah, so I was really pleased with that. I don't think I have a lot more to say about that. I was really running out of fabric here. You can see, can you see? Yeah, this pocket here has got a seam in the middle of it. This pocket here, which is where I like to put my sunglasses, also has a seam in it. So, I mean, you can definitely tell it's patched together, and I imagine as it gets washed and worn, those seams will become more obvious. But I kind of think that's okay on a denim jacket. Yeah, I think that's part of how it works. So that is my jacket. I have got, the poppers have now arrived actually just today. So I'm going to put the rest of those missing bits in, and then that's another finished garment. Very pleased with that. Good, I think that is all the sewing that I've done. As I say, no fabric has arrived. I have still got some of the same plans that I had last time, but you know, limited time, can't make everything all at once. What else have I got? I have got some stitching. So I showed you the start of this last time, and now I have finished it. Well, I say finished. I've finished the chart. I finished the chart. I mean, what we learn, I think I'll put the chart up here, and you will see when you compare the chart with this, I am not very good at following instructions, even when they are my own instructions. So I done, to be fair, when I did the chart, I had cross stitch in mind, and I thought probably it would be therefore on a white background, and so that's how I designed it. As I was doing this on needlepoint, and I had lots of this navy that I wanted to use for the background, so I outlined the letters in the first word with a sort of pale yellowish colour to make that stand out more. I thought this was fine just in the orange colour there. But then when I got to the final word, I don't know, I just thought I could carry on just with the navy background and then do this as I charted it in the reds and yellows. But I kind of wanted to try doing it the other way around. And I also was really near the end of my stash of some of these colours, and I didn't know that I would be able to do the whole design the way I'd charted it, and then that would be annoying if I'd done one letter but then couldn't finish the other letters and so on. So what I did, as you can see, I stitched the letters in the navy, I added in little highlights in the pale yellow, and then I took the yarns that I had and divided them in half, so I knew I would have the right amount, and worked from the top and the bottom inwards to the middle, starting with the darkest reds, the oranges, the yellows, and then the palest yellow. This is sort of reading as quite different on screen, but it blends in reasonably well, so it's sort of this sunset kind of look. Anyway, I like how it's turned out. I think what I do need to do, because I think I said this last time, my plan is to sew this up into a kneeler. I think it needs to be a bit wider. So I think it needs to be about like that. So I'm going to put in a border on each side and maybe a slightly bigger border at the top and bottom as well. And then that will be completely finished and ready to sew up. But I'm pleased to have finished the chart. I really enjoyed stitching that. It goes super fast. The coverage is not brilliant. You'll be able to see in some parts. If I were making this for actual use, I would do a cross stitch, I think. Or I would have used a finer canvas, something like that. But for what I'm planning to do with it, that is completely fine. So that is good, and that is finished. Now, just going to go and get my knitting. So last time I showed you a sock that I had begun knitting. It's from Kate Davis Designs Blue Stocking Club. I have finished that sock. I'm just going to put it on a blocker to show you. You can see I've not sewn in the ends. Honestly, I have socks that are 3 years old that I've been wearing regularly that I've still not sewn in the ends. You can just tuck the ends in. No one ever knows. It's fine. Anyway, so this was the Elizabeth Montague sock from Kate Davis Designs Blue Stocking Club. It's got this really pretty design here with the twisted rib panels interspersed with these little lace panels. Once again, what we learn is Roz is not good at following instructions. So the instructions for this have you just continue that pattern up that panel that sort of ends up being on the front of the sock, and then you do the back part of the sock in plain stocking stitch. I just thought that was a bit boring. So I worked out the numbers to be able to continue the pattern all the way around. I think I had to add in 3 stitches maybe, something like that, in order to have the right spacing for the repeats. But that worked out fine. And then I just, I can't remember what I did for the cuff, which I'm going to have to work out because I'm going to have to knit a second sock. I think I might have had to do some decreasing before I got to the cuff to make the... Yeah, that's right. I think I did. So just to make the... I think I'd ended up on this section. That's right. I remember now. Good. What I'd ended up doing on this section was, instead of having 1 stitch between each of these sort of panels, I'd ended up with 2 in order to have sufficient room for my leg. I think it was a choice between either increasing a few stitches or decreasing a few stitches, and I decided what I needed to do was increase. So there are 2 stitches between, but then I wanted the rib at the top to be even, so I had to decrease where there were 2 here. I don't know if you can see this. There were 2 here, and they decreased to 1 there to make the little rib at the top. When I was knitting it, so it's toe up sock, which I think I might have said before, not my favourite, but I did it, and I measured really carefully how long I thought the foot needed to be before starting this bit for the heel. And I looked at it when I was doing it, and I'm like, that is ridiculous. That is miles longer than my foot actually is. So I was really surprised when I tried it on afterwards. It is slightly too long, but it's too long by like about 2 rows. It's not an inch too long. I was genuinely thinking I was going to have to do some sort of surgery here and chop off the toe and re-knit it to be the right sort of length. But actually, they're fine. It is a little bit long, but it's very wearable and very comfortable and still really pretty. I'm still going to do it like this in the hope that you might be able to just catch a glimpse of twinkle in the yarn. I don't know if you can or not, but anyway, super pretty yarn, super pretty pattern. I haven't cast on the second sock, but I am going to do that very soon. I have started thinking, however, about my next knitting project. Now, my next knitting project isn't going to be socks. I've got quite a lot of socks now, and it's summer and it's not really sock weather. So although the Kate Davis designs will come in every couple of weeks, the next one's already come through and I like it, and I think it's a pattern that I probably will knit at some point. I'm not going to cast it on straight away. I am going to cast on next for this cardigan. It's a Ripple Wave cardigan by Joji Locatelli. It's really fun. It's knitted sideways. I think you start at the front placket here and you knit round, and I'm not quite sure what you do about the sleeves, And then at the back, it's got a really fun sort of box pleat effect. So it's really swingy at the back. You can see from the pattern, it's not designed to have buttons, it's not designed to be worn closed. It's a really light, summer, swingy, loose sort of cardigan. The yarn that I'm planning to knit this in, 2 seconds. The yarn that I'm planning to knit this in is this. This is Posh yarn, and it is Esme Clarions of Summer. Yeah, I've had this since last summer. I've got 3 skeins of it. I don't think that is quite enough, but I've got a plan. Let me just unfold the skein so you can see a bit better the colours in this. There we go. So it's got this sort of beautiful fuchsia speckling effect in amongst the sort of paler colours. I think it'll make a really lovely summer loose cardigan in that sort of lace pattern, just to sort of drape around and go over things. So what I think I might do is on the pattern, the button band down the front, not button band, but you know what I mean, the placket down the front, and also the cuffs at the sleeve are what you knit last. So I'm hoping that I will have just about enough to knit the main body of the garment in this yarn, and then find a contrast yarn. I say find, I've got quite a lot of contrast yarn, probably in this sort of pink colour for those sections, and I'm hoping that that will mean I can eke this out just about enough. We'll see. If not, I'm not sure what I will do, because you know, there may be somebody on Ravelry destashing a skein of this, but if not, I don't think it will be very easy to find anything else to finish it with. So it's slightly more in hope than confidence. You see the yellow in that as well with the pink. I think it's really beautiful, as always, from Posh yarn. So that is my next knitting plan, is to get that caked up and start knitting. I think that would be nice to wear for summer. But all of that said, crochet. And now I did say I was not going to show you my crochet blanket every video, and I'm not. I have been working on it. The round that I'm on is really quite slow going, and I was slightly discouraged because I thought a couple of nights ago I was working out and I thought I was at the 3rd side of 4, and then it turned out I was only on the 2nd side of 4, and it was just, yeah, it's taking a long time. I think what I need to do though is make that my finishing project. So in the last couple of weeks, the thing that I've worked on whenever I've had a moment has been the needlepoint, and it's just finished. And before that it was a cross stitch, and it's just finished. And there were, you know, the things that I was really enjoying doing and the things that I automatically reached for. And I just think I'm so near the end of the crochet that I just need to make that my finishing project, that it is the thing I work on by default. Unless I'm actively choosing to work on something else, that is what I'm working on. And I think that gives me a fair chance, maybe if not within 2 weeks, certainly soon after that. It's been the thing I've been working on, for example, while I've been watching a bit of tennis these last couple of weeks with the French Open. And if it's still in progress by the time it gets to Wimbledon, it'll be my Wimbledon project. And I just need to commit to making it the thing I am finishing. And I think I can do it. I'm excited about doing it. So I don't think, let me just see. Oh, I know, I have one other thing that I wanted to mention to you before we finish. But I think that's it for what I have been working on and plans that I have got. Apologies for my slightly messy fingers. I don't know if you can see blue paint. I mean, I do often have paint on my fingers and in my fingernails. Today that is from the garden furniture that I've been painting. It's beautiful weather here today, very still, very warm. So I have been taking my ancient garden furniture, I've scraped all the rust off it, I've primed it, and then I put on this blue paint here. I'm just waiting for the last layer to dry, and then I can put it all upright and start sitting on it. I will put in some pictures there. My brother very kindly has been making me a patio area for seating in my garden. It's not quite finished, but it's almost finished, and it's finished enough that I can sit on it now. So I'll put some pictures of the lovely furniture and the lovely patio that I've got there. So last week in my video I mentioned at one point, just in passing, polka dots, and I promised to give you my little rant about polka dots. I forgot, so here it is, because this is a rant I've been working on for quite a long time. Polka dots are a very specific kind of pattern. Not every dot is a polka dot, and that is okay. It really is. You don't have to call it a polka dot if it's not a polka dot. So what is a polka dot? A polka dot is a regular pattern of large circles. Regular pattern of large circles. So this top is not a polka dot pattern. I'm going to get nearer. Can you see why? Because these aren't circles. They're slightly blobby. It's sort of a regular pattern, but not really a regular pattern, and they're a bit blobby. This is not a polka dot pattern. I would call this a spot pattern, I think. They're sort of random spots. On my curtains behind me, what do you see? Let me hold this. Regular, reasonably large, but actually not compared to the scale of the whole curtain. Circles. These really are proper circles. I would say that's almost a polka dot. You could just about call that a polka dot if you wanted to, and I wouldn't come after you. There we go. Told that about it. Aren't they pretty though? I've had these curtains for a long time. It was fabric from John Lewis. It was bright pink, and then it's got these sort of woven in multicoloured spots. I really love it. So yeah, you could just about call that a polka dot. This is not a polka dot. What else is not a polka dot? Something with really tiny dots. Often if they're regular tiny dots, that is a Swiss dot pattern. Often tiny dots are not regular, and that's just fine. That's just a spot pattern or a dot pattern. It's not a polka dot if they are not circles. It's not a polka dot if they are not regularly spread out. And I would say probably also it's not a polka dot even if they're regularly spread out, but they're spread very far apart. So you remember the blue top I showed you last time with the white dots on it? They are definitely circular and they're definitely regular, but they are very far apart. It's not really a polka dot. So I'm going to put some pictures up here. This is a polka dot pattern. This is also a polka dot pattern. Circles, regular, quite large. Here are some things that are not polka dot patterns. Circles, but quite small. Circles, but randomly spaced. Not circles. Okay? So it's fine. It's not a lesser thing to be a spot pattern of some other kind. It's not a lesser thing to just be a blobby pattern. But if it's not a polka dot pattern, we don't have to call it a polka dot pattern. That has been my TED Talk. Thank you for coming. I will be back again, hopefully in a couple of weeks, with another roundup of where I've been up to. I haven't yet managed to film anything else. I'm really sorry. I have been thinking about it. I may try, this is not a promise, but possibly what I might try and do is film some transformation challenges sort of all together in a week or two over the summer where I've got a bit more time, and then be able to schedule them on the channel after that. At the moment, you know, work is relatively busy, and I sort of, I film every other week, and in the in-between weekends it's nice to have a little bit of a breather, and I don't really feel like increasing the amount of filming I'm doing. It's possible that I could end up doing them sort of in stages, dribs and drabs, and filming a bit here and a bit there and putting it together, and I might do that. But I think it's more likely it will be when I've got more time on my hands and I can do them all in one go. Studio tour might happen a bit sooner than that, possibly, but I'm not promising. Anyway, if you've stayed with me all the way through to the end, thank you so much. Thank you for coming to Pink Central. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, click the notification bell, share it with your friends, and come back next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.